The lesson of a lost love. The day I left my ex and reclaimed my dignity, I met Ivana in high school. From the first day, there was something about her that made me feel alive. We understood each other without words, we were best friends, sharing everything. We spent hours talking about anything and everything, sharing jokes and secrets. Over time, I realized my feelings went beyond friendship. I couldn't help it, I was completely in love with her. And the most incredible thing was that it felt like she saw me the same way. One day, due to health issues, I had to miss school. When I returned, I found a scene that made me uncomfortable. Ivana was laughing and joking with her friend Emmy. I felt a pang of jealousy but decided to let it go. Joking to hide my feelings, I said, "Oh, so you're cheating on me already?" But, to my surprise, her reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of laughing, she distanced herself. The following weeks, we barely talked, and her cold attitude left me confused. When vacation arrived, I gathered the courage to message her, determined to fix our friendship. It was in that conversation that my world took an unexpected turn. Ivana confessed that she was in love with me. I couldn't believe it. Butterflies in my stomach kept me from replying immediately, but finally, I told her that I loved her too. We began a relationship that became the center of my world. During the break, we exchanged messages filled with affection, and every word from her made me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Everything seemed perfect, until I saw something on her social media that really hurt me. Emmy, her friend, was calling her my beautiful girl. I tried not to read too much into it, but the jealousy and insecurity were growing in me. When I told her how I felt, Ivana just laughed and told me it was no big deal. I thought maybe it was a trust issue and decided to let it go. But one day, she and Emmy suggested something that shattered me. With a smile that I now remember as cruel, they proposed that we try a polyamorous relationship. I couldn't believe it. My face changed and tears started streaming down before I could stop them. With a trembling voice, I told Ivana that I loved her too much to share her with anyone else. Both of them laughed and said it was just a joke, as if they didn't understand they'd just crushed me. I felt so humiliated that I decided to stay away from my phone and everything for a day. But the next morning, Ivana texted me, saying she needed some space. 3 days before school resumed, she decided to break up with me, leaving me in emotional misery. The vacation ended and returning to school was torture. For a week, we avoided each other. Until, one day, she approached me and handed me a bouquet with my favorite cartoon character and a letter. When I opened it, all the pain from the past days disappeared. She was asking if we could try again, and I couldn't stop the tears. I cried out of joy, convinced that this time things would be different. I prepared a letter and a special gift as a token of our new beginning. We became a couple again, and although being by her side made me feel complete, something felt off. We barely saw each other and our conversations were shallow, brief. Every hug felt incomplete. Then, the final blow arrived. One day, while checking her social media, I saw a post where she told a guy, whom I'll call Lemon, to marry her. My worst fears came true at that moment. I confronted her, hoping she'd explain, give me some reason that would help me understand. But instead of apologizing, she told me I was overreacting, that my jealousy had ruined everything. She blocked me and broke up with me once again. This time, I swore to myself I wouldn't go back. The following weeks were horrible, but slowly, I found the strength to move forward. I focused on my studies, worked on becoming a better person, and eventually, I found someone else. A girl who treated me with kindness and respect, someone who valued me for who I was. Everything seemed to be going well, until Ivana decided to reappear in my life. First, drawings of my favorite characters started arriving. Then, some stuffed animals. At first, I didn't pay much attention to them, but then I started noticing they were carefully chosen gifts, meant to touch every sensitive part of me. It was obvious they came from Ivana. Confusion overwhelmed me. Why was she coming back now, when I was finally getting over her? I decided to send her a message. I proposed that we be friends, to ease the tension and because, deep down, there was still a part of me that clung to what we once had. Her response was a letter. In it, Ivana confessed that she still loved me, that her relationship with Lemon had ended, and that she had realized I was the love of her life. Finally, she asked to meet in person. I hesitated but agreed. When we met, she was more vulnerable than ever. She began to cry, telling me she'd made mistakes and wanted me back in her life. For a moment, my old feelings resurfaced. Part of me wanted to say yes, to try one more time, but something in her attitude made me feel that she wasn't there out of genuine love, but rather out of the emptiness that Lemon had left. Her gaze, more than remorseful, seemed desperate. Suddenly, everything clicked. She didn't love me, she just needed me as a temporary refuge. At that moment, my feelings became clear. I looked at her with a calmness I'd never felt before and said, Ivana, I loved you deeply, more than you ever realized. But I'm no longer the person you can leave and pick up whenever it suits you. For years, I was your second choice, the guy who was there when no one else was. But today I finally understand that I deserve better. I deserve someone who doesn't play with my feelings. She tried to justify her mistakes, but I didn't let her. I hugged her one last time and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for the lessons. You taught me not to accept less than I'm worth. I wish you the best, but my path is going in a different direction." I left her there with a mixture of surprise and tears in her eyes. As I walked away, I felt a freedom I had never known. I realized that by saying goodbye, I wasn't just closing a chapter of my life, I was also reclaiming the dignity I had lost in all those years of pain and emotional dependence. With every step I took, the weight of that toxic relationship faded. That day, I learned the true value of self-love, and with that strength, I decided to walk toward a future where I wouldn't need anyone else to feel complete.